8 years ago I camped in this exact same spot. That's where I had my campfire. You might remember in our old videos we'd cook around a half circle of rocks. We've kind of stopped doing that just because of the amount of pollution and the smoke in the air. It's just not good for your lungs. Much healthier, safer to just cook over gas the way we've been doing. And that hole you saw in the last video in the tent has now been permanently fixed with a proper patch, permanent repair job. And last night's mishap, we didn't really think this would happen, but the Sawyer Mini has actually frozen completely, rendering it useless. Lucky, we do have a spare Sawyer Mini. The spare one we had inside our sleeping bags to keep it warm. So that's one lesson with the hollow fibre filters. If they freeze, the filter may have been compromised, because once they thaw out, I believe they crack inside and they're no longer useful. Temperature inside the tent was 1 degree, and I kind of assumed that the water wouldn't freeze, but outside the tent it must have dropped just below 0. Unfortunately, the Sawyer Mini is gone.
Worried, this one is
Come on. Woo. 25 push-up challenge every day, yeah?
My goodness.
Go.
Spare Sawyer Mini is functioning. Here's something we don't see every day in the mountains of Australia, campers. That's because the mountains are not really as steep in some parts of the world, but that is not meant to happen around here, man. Massive boulder, probably almost 1 meter in diameter, has obviously come rolling down the mountain in a little mini avalanche. You wouldn't want to be standing here when that thing landed. Probably weighs at least a ton, maybe a couple of tons.
Let's go.
Bit cold out here, campers, so as we stop for our picnic lunch, just laid out the old piece of EVA foam. Keeps your bum warm as you're sitting down on the cold ground. Really hard to find a perfect campsite. We've got water here, we've got flat ground, but we did have to camp right next to the road. But it is a closed road, so it's highly unlikely that any cars will come down here. And one thing we've definitely got, and that is clear sky above us, so if any branches fall, they won't land on the tent. No tall trees too close to us. Breakfast time.
Plastic bag.
Sweeping out the tent floor, packing up the gear. Always busy, huh? Nice dry spot here, Canvas, because this is where we had our tent. Why are you laughing? How many was that?
It's only 15.
15. This is something I've wanted to cover for a while, is the proper technique for deflating one of these air mats. To see how you can use your knees to just squash all the air out. Before you start kneeling on the thermarest though, make sure there's no stones underneath the mat, because you don't want to pop a hole in the mat. These thermarests are really strong though, I've never had one burst. Yeah, that's the next step, Canvas, is fold it in half. Makes it much easier to fit inside your backpack if you do that second fold. And once you reach the end, that actual valve, open the valve back up again and squeeze the final bit of air out. So you actually start off squeezing the air the way you saw Christina doing, then half fold it, roll it back up, and then do your final squeeze. Make sure there's no air inside the mat when you put it in your backpack. We always keep the thermarest on top of the tent. So the tent is at the very bottom, and then the next thing in there are the two thermarests. I carry the thermarests in my backpack and the tent. Christina tends to carry the food. Let's have a look, have a look. So, and the tent poles, they're always on the side. And I make sure that the tent poles, the bottom of the poles, is right down at the bottom of the backpack, so you don't want it poking into the tent itself. Some people like to keep their tent poles on the outside. We always keep them inside. Extremely important item. One of the worst case scenarios is you come out here with your tent and you don't have your tent poles, man. You'd be sleeping in your tent bivvy bag style. Not a very comfortable way to sleep at night, particularly if it was raining. Christina manages to keep her backpack extremely clean and brand new looking. Always sweeping the dirt off. Aren't you, sweetie?
What?
Very clean lady.
You taking a photo now?
Good afternoon, campers. Just found something quite interesting. See this small little footpad track just here, and then it continues down to that fallen log. What it is, it's a natural animal crossing. If you were to stand here or set up a motion sensor camera, you could literally see maybe 10, 20 different animal types crossing every single day. Cats, dogs, foxes, maybe even deer might use that to cross the creek. There's the natural footpad. Another avalanche occurred right here, campers. There's the outcome. A couple of tons of rock has just landslided down the side of the mountain. The last place in the national park where you would want your tent to be placed. Good morning once again, campers. Got that log on the road just to act as a speed hump, a speed warning. We did have one car actually pass during the night, and as they approached, we could hear them coming, so we shined the torch lights in their direction. And they slowed down to a pace of probably only 2 miles per hour as they passed us, and they definitely saw us, of course. Another reason to have that tripod standing there with some reflective items on top. Yet another campsite. Just ignore all this gear. Everything was inside last night as we were sleeping. Just brought it out this morning to pack up camp.
Getting crazy to putting this on my back.
I put Christina's backpack up there to keep it off the ground. Keep it away from the leeches. Sweetie, there was leeches on the ground, that's why.
It's a water.
Dinner time, camp 4. That's where I'll be having my dinner. That's where I'll be sitting tonight on a rock, using the gaiters as a cushion. The gaiters are the type of equipment you don't really, doesn't really matter if you get them dirty and all scuffed. I wouldn't be sitting on my favourite jumper. Yet another campathon comes to a conclusion at Bush Channel. Campers, check out the freeze-dried strawberries, man. Look at that. One of them just fell onto the ground. So good, you wouldn't waste them.